Everybody, how's it going out there? Oh, we're only a few weeks away until I have to frickin' start moving my butt. I'm gonna try and record some non-timely videos in order to try and keep a constant flow of content on this channel, but be aware that they're not going to be timely given a certain month, and I'll let you know when I fully get ready to get out of here, and we'll set up something new. I'll record like plenty, like about a month's worth or so, in order to try and get things keeping smooth and stuff like that in case I run into issues and moving and stuff like that. If we stop having videos for a while, I'll let you know if anything goes bad in the transition. But I got a lot of new subscribers lately, probably due to the April Fool's thing. But now it's time to cover topics that I should have been covering during those weeks. My apologies, my apologies. However, there is a good thing here because additional information has sort of come out revolving around this particular topic, which if I had presented it earlier, I would not have been able to present. So it's good because it allows me an opportunity to bring up the topic again. Recently, the feds have gone after something called Backpage.com. And Backpage.com is a sort of classified thing, similar to Craigslist. It's sort of a competitor to Craigslist. They were infamous for having a lot of adult services and things like that that you could purchase on their website. Basically, they were online pimp daddies, right? So the federal government cracked down on them, and they did so after passing after putting through a particular law into the government, which is the states fight against sexual workers and things like that. I don't remember. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the whole name of it, but I can give you a general gist. Basically, the new law indicates that people who are providing web services, if they are evidenced as supporting sex trafficking crimes on their services, the person who owns the website can bear the responsibility for said such violations of the law. Before, you basically, if you owned a website and it's a Web 2.0 website. So what does Web 2.0 mean? Web 2.0 is a very old term which is used to describe websites where users provide content. Basically, mostly every website nowadays is a Web 2.0 website. But back in the day, most websites were not interactive, particularly in the dial-up era. Most websites were just like microfiches. What the heck's Okay, kids, you don't know what a microfiche is. Okay, they were books, all right? They were online books. Literally, you could read the websites, you can go to different websites and go around the web, but you really couldn't add content to the web as a user. You could only read the things that the person who provided the website put up. So you can go to like nationalgeographic.com and read about fishes, but you couldn't comment on all those fishes, and you probably wouldn't see video. It was probably mostly text and words because we didn't have enough bandwidth for that kind of stuff back then. But in essence, when Web 2.0 came up, like one of the laws is the communication decency laws, indicated that the user typing the comment is responsible for their own comment. The site owner is not responsible for said content. So this sort of law was being used by Backpage in order to say, hey, our people are not responsible if, our organization is not responsible if our users are posting sort of prostitution, sort of advertisements on our website, right? But now they're like, aha, but now you are. And even worse, they didn't do what's called grandfathering. Grandfathering is the concept of a law that says, let me give you an example. Let's do some silly example. Let's say I put a law and I say, I want eating pineapples is against the law. So declares the rule on April 7th. You can't eat pineapples anymore, right? So if I put a grandfather clause into that law, I'll say, hey, if you ate pineapples before April 7th, you're good, because it wasn't a law back then, and you couldn't have been expected to know that it would be a law back then. So basically, you can eat pineapples back then, right? But you can't eat them anymore. It's against the law. If I don't put a grandfather clause into the law, basically it means if you ever ate pineapples, even before I made eating pineapples against the law, you could get in legal trouble for it. It's basically a big FU bomb in a legal sense. So this new law that sort of tweaked it so that the institutions that host the Web 2.0 things can bear responsibility for the actions taken by users didn't have a grandfather clause in it. And there's a reason for that, because I'll put a bunch of articles in the description below, but this Backpage.com thing is sort of what started this change of the law. There was a thing that happened in the Senate in early 2017 that sort of showed evidence that, hey, this Backpage.com group as a company may have been more aware of their users using them as a prostitution service than they let on. And so, you know, we're going to start to take action against that. And when they started to take action against that, they ran into the common decency law. And unfortunately, instead of using sort of RICO statutes and saying, hey, look, they're sort of violating RICO statutes if they're using this common decency law to sort of shield themselves, instead they enacted a new law. There's a lot of debate as to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. In fact, a lot of law enforcement has evidenced that they would use Backpage.com in order to sort of fish for bad people using, you know, doing this whole thing. It's like, yeah, I'm a young 21-year-old looking for a dude. You pay me $500 and let's see if anyone bites. Oh, we got one. Okay, all right. Sir, have a seat. You know what I mean? So they were using it as, law enforcement was using this sort of a thing as sort of a way to fish for individuals who were committing the crime of going and paying for intercourse. So by shutting it down, I guess they decided that it wasn't worth the time anymore to go fishing for the small fish. Instead, they wanted to, you know, take a big bite out of the whole thing. So what the heck does this have to do with furries anyway? It is basically the idea and the principle of this is why we can't have nice things. Because as a response, many personal advertisers and things like that have decided to step back. And because of that, we have Pounced.org. Pounced.org is sort of the furry equivalent of eHarmony or OkCupid or things like that. But instead of having 29 dimensions of compatibility that you pay for, we have one dimension of compatibility, and that is, do you RP? No, it's like, are you a furry? Like, basically, it's a furry website to meet up with other furries for friendships, for matchmaking, for love, anything like that. Now, Pounced.org shut down their doors not because their organization basically did what Backpage.com did, right? They weren't on the radar, right? A lot of people are saying, oh, they're coming after the furries. When they look at these new laws, they're coming after the furry fandom. They were going after a human website that was doing nasty things. And unfortunately, there was basically the law in which they enacted was sort of a shotgun law that sort of like could be read and can be interpreted as being a threat to smaller companies' personal ads. For instance, after this law passed Congress, Craigslist itself decided to take away personal ads. Basically, they didn't want to do the whole personal ads thing anymore because they were worried that there might be some things going on and they don't have a lot of moderators to look over it. Similarly, Pounced.org saw that action and took their own action. Basically, they decided to take down their web service, to talk with lawyers and things like that, in order to make sure that, to see how this new law is enforced. Because as I have said before, laws are not what we enact, it's what we enforce, right? So when a new law comes into play, how the government is going to behave is sort of up in the air. Clearly, the biggest thing that they wanted to do with this new law was go after that Backpage.com, as before noted. They wanted to go after them and this was basically the floodgate where they dropped the moat and just came charging across the bridge. Whether I don't think they were going after Pounced.org or not even Craigslist, because it really also does have to do with like how cooperative does law enforcement see your organization as being with them, you know, in certain circumstances. There seems to be a lot of articles that indicate that Backpage.com had a lot of interaction with lawmakers and law enforcers and things like that. And I guess that both groups felt that the Backpage.com was not always forthcoming, so they decided to try and modify the law so that they could take them down as a criminal organization. That being said, it does leave organizations like Pounced.org in a particular situation. Because in their Web 2.0 style, they allow users to design and make their own personal ads however they want and without direct moderation before it goes onto the internet. The issue with that becomes is if the user does put up an ad and say, well, I will sell my body or something like that, not realizing it's illegal, even though they're an adult and they're not being coerced into doing so, they can get in trouble for it, and the website can now get in trouble for it, not just them. So it puts smaller organizations like this into a sort of a legal bind. So they are taking their time, they're taking a step back and trying to figure out what's going on with this new law before they take actions. The website, I'll post the link to the website down below, which goes into more detail as to their position and to why as they did. I'm going to add an addendum to it a little bit, though, because it sounds like most furry organizations, they are woefully understaffed. Because furries are all over the place, and we run these large monolithic websites for our niche communities and don't have the time to really go through and do all this stuff. There's a what you can do section. To me, another thing that furries can do is that Pounced.org is a free service. A lot of furry organizations are free services, and they're run by volunteers. The best thing you could do also is, you know, if you have experience in editing and things like that, and are willing to be trained by individuals, you know, to make sure that their terms of service are being followed, I think Pounced.org could do well to sort of follow the Flera model, in that anybody, and this is a thing, anybody can post a news article on Flera.com. The trick is that it goes through an editing process. Information's going to be vetted, things are going to be looked into, and if it's an opinion article, a little less vetting may happen. If it's a fact-based article, then a lot of vetting is going to be happening. But in essence, a small group of editors look over the content that is submitted and then decide whether or not to publish. I don't know how many furries that Pounced.org served, but I think that after they go through all the ones that are kind of already up and see if they sort of violate this new law, that they should put it back up, but then make it so that any new users submitting things need to go through an editing and vetting process to make sure that nothing is in violation of the law and anything like that, and then they can kind of sort of, you know, put it up there. It should be relatively obviously. The only thing that companies are responsible for right now, according to this new law, is sex trafficking. Every other thing right now is sort of on the table. It's sort of a slippery slope, which is why a lot of people in the internet sort of department of freedom of speech are kind of throwing question marks in the air, because it's like, well, if a company's responsible for the sex trafficking that's going on in their comment section or on their Web 2.0, are they also responsible for other things, such as terrorism recruitment or you know, drugs or any other shady things that can happen on their platform without them realizing it, right? Is Second Life responsible for those things? Is YouTube responsible for those things? And yeah, a lot of bigger companies have the money to sort of, you know, stem this tide, but a lot of the smaller organizations and niche communities like Furry Fandom are going to suffer the cost for it. So we're going to have to be ready, if we want to keep the organizations that we have, to volunteer, to fight back against it by becoming a more robust volunteer force. So if you are a furry who has been in Pounced.org, who has used Pounced.org, as sort of as a site to find your true love, and you want to show your appreciation for the site, feel free to contact them and say, you know, if you guys ever go back up, I will gladly volunteer for your service to make sure that that your organization is following within the letter of the law, and to help in this sort of new political environment on our internet. I think that's the best thing that you can do. That's sort of my addendum to their little what you can do to help. Because yeah, throwing money at the EFF is one thing, but what if, you know, we're stuck with this law, right? What if we're stuck for it for the foreseeable future? How do we behave then? Because the EFF can only do so much. They're not the Congress. They can lobby, but they're not going to be able to change the law themselves. And, you know, run for office maybe. Furry's running for office. I don't know. But anyways, what we can do here is we can try to adapt to the changing environment and work with it. So I think that's all I got to say about that. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to, you know, go out there, support, you know, send your condolences to the guys at Pounced.org. They're going through a lot of crap right now. And I hope that they get back up soon. And that, you know, furries can continue to come together and find ways to come together in spite of the adversity that's occurring on the internet right now as far as laws are concerned. So, but I'm going to get the hop out of here. Thank you very much for watching again, and hope you have a good day. Kick a like, kick that like button, kick a comment in the comment section. Are you a user of Pounced.org or any other services such as that? Have you found your true love through the internet, through the one dimension of the compatibility as that is, do you RP? Yeah, no. Anyways, I'm going to get the hop out of here. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again next week.